from last week riding that bike. I don't know what it was with that seat. It kicks my ass. So
it ain't want you to be graceful.
no, not at all. So I'm just now can sit down and not be uncomfortable, because at first it was like that first day the couch was like terrible, and then the second day it was like getting up, walking around, going up the stairs, because I was doing laundry. I was like,
but bikes ain't no punk. Quiet as it's kept. Bikes ain't no punk. I remember the first time I had rode a bike since ever, for real. Because when I learned how to ride a bike without training wheels, was pretty much the last time I rode a bike seriously. Right. Then somebody brought one up to the school in high school. I rode it for 2 seconds and gave it back. And then as a grown for 2 seconds and gave it back. Hit the corner, that came back, gave it back. And as an adult, we were like, we're gonna go bike riding, right? So me, my ex-husband, my brother, his ex-wife, when we was all still together. So we like, we're gonna go bike riding. So we get to riding bikes. We start on 77 and Exchange. We walk to 71st, get the little divvy bikes, and we rode from 71st and Exchange all the way down the South Shore Bike Trail, all the way downtown.
Okay, y'all rode
far. You hear me talking to you? And this was my first time on a bike. And again, seriously, would learn how to ride without training wheels. Then we realized we had to come back.
Now, see, that was the part. That was the part for me.
Always coming back.
So my parents live like literally around. It's kind of around the corner, but not really. To the expressway 290 separates our houses, so our sides of the town. So like literally they're on the other side of the expressway, so you just kind of go around, so it feels like around the corner. It's maybe a mile, so my parents are maybe a mile from here.
Okay.
So I met my cousin over there, and I was like, okay, now this is already starting to be uncomfortable. This is just getting down the street from my house. And I'm like, okay, this is already feeling not so comfortable. I hope I can make it around the corner because I'm meeting her there. Girl, I forgot how many hills and stuff is over here. The bumps. I mean, you notice that like how unlevel things are when your seat is not comfortable and you got something hitting your butt and it's not supposed to.
Yeah, all types of places.
Lord, I was like, my poor cousin, she was so incredibly patient with me, and I appreciated her for that. But when I tell you, she was gone, and I got to the thing, I said, we got to get back, but cousin, I can't ride. I'm gonna have to walk.
You go over the river and through the woods.
I was like, I can't sit on this seat. Like that seat was killing me. I said, I can't ride back. I just can't. We're gonna have to walk these bikes. So we walked the bikes all the way back, and she was cool about it. I said, I'm gonna give me a new seat. So I just bought me a new bike seat. This one
is it more cushion?
It's bigger. So that was another thing. The seat on my bike was really small. It was like really small when you got a big butt. It's like, I was like, what the hell is this? Who thought of this? This is shenanigans. But now I have.
It was not made for the less sisters with the backside.
It was not made for it. So it's funny the way it's shaped, because it almost have like little booty dips, little bun dips, so you can booty just lock in like a Lego. So
so that one was specifically made for the sisters.
Look, the seat is this wide. The seat is no lie, is this wide. So I'm like, okay. So I'm excited to try it. I was gonna go out yesterday, but it was too hot. And then I was gonna go out tomorrow, but it's supposed to rain all day tomorrow. So to be continued. But yes, we live now, sis. We have people. Hey y'all. I suspect that due to the nature of this particular episode, people will probably watch it later. This is like really, really, really a tough topic, but one I especially feel like we need to have and talk about and address, because it is deep rooted in our community, where we don't talk about these things. We don't talk about sexual abuse in our families or in our community, and it's happening over and over again. So it's been on my heart to want to have this conversation for so long, but you kind of always kind of wait, like, do I have it now? It's such a heavy topic. Like, is this a good time? But we need to have it now.
And
And
that's the part. It's never really a great time,
it's
to be like, hey, let's talk about this deep seated rooted issue in our community. And though we talk about a lot of deep rooted issues in our community, this one hits especially different. And especially close to the heart because we're talking about our young people being violated or potentially being violated. And then we're also dealing with the fact that so many of us have been, in that situation. And
one in
people
four
don't want
girls,
to live them.
one in four girls, one in six boys have been sexually abused. So that means that a lot of times when you're having family gatherings, one in four of your female family members have been sexually abused,
And one of six of your male.
and one of six have been one of the six males have been.
And before we jump too far, because I know we can go in a lot of different directions with this conversation, but I don't want those stats to like blow past anyone. That is a lot of people. One in four.
One in four. More so, 42 million people have been sexually abused. So, and that's what we're estimating. So that's of not reported. So there's so many things that are not reported. Sexual abuse is one of the most underreported types of child abuse ever. And a big thing why it's not talked about is because there's no family support structure. There's nobody telling, kids don't feel safe. It's somebody that does Erins Law. So for those of you that are not aware of what Erins Law is, and I ask, so before we get started and we hop into this, since we're going to be talking about something very deep rooted, and it may trigger people, I want you to take care of yourself.
Please.
I would love for you to be here and talk about your experiences, chime in with us, say the things you know. Nikki, I see you. Give me a second. But I want you to take care of yourself. When we're talking about these things, I really need you to recognize if you're feeling triggered, if you're having a hard time, I want you to take care of yourself. You can reach out to me directly. I have resources that you guys can tap into should you need additional support. Maybe you've gone through it and you just need therapy and you've never had it, or you know someone or suspect that someone has gone through it. Maybe it's your child, maybe it's your niece, maybe it's your cousin, maybe it's someone that you know that's
maybe
not
it's your partner.
It's your partner, anyone. I want you to have the resources. So feel free to reach out to me on any of the pages that we have. You can reach out to Natalie as well if you're a friend with Natalie and she knows how to get in touch with me directly. There are services out there for you, and we want you to get that help and support. But this topic is really important. We got to have it, and not only off the cusp of hearing about Cosby getting let out. Today, I noticed someone in my feed, I can't remember who it was, shared a video of a young woman that was pretty much putting her family out there and saying, like, enough is enough. She was talking about her father. Her father had been sexually abusing people within her family for years. And she said that it was enough and she was going to speak out on it. And she was just very sick of the family protection. So we're going to talk about that as well today and how important it is to do that. We're going to talk about tips, how to start the conversation, how to talk to your babies to even, figure out if they need help, because they may not readily come to you. So you need to be letting them know that they should be coming to you, and not in that threatening way. Most parents be like, if somebody ever do something, you tell me if they do it, because I'm going to kill them or I'm going to do this. That is not the way that you you facilitate that conversation with your child. So,
and then knowing the signs too, if they don't readily come out and tell you.
There are so many signs that which goes back to, we've had a conversation before about, kids and when behavioral changes and if they're angry or they're not listening. A lot of times these babies is being sexually abused and they don't know how to tell you. and they are in a trauma state and they're being quiet about it. And so if they're having those changes in behavior, if they seem like they're just angry all the time, don't just assume they're being disrespectful and they're being
or even subtle things like if they may be completely normal with you, but they just don't want to go over somebody's house.
Oh, we gonna talk about that.
You know,
about that and why that's super important. And then I want to break a myth. Whenever we talk about sexual abuse out in the open, it seems to only be directed towards an adult and a child, when actually a lot of other children sexually abuse children. There are a lot of children being sexually abused from their peers, from children that's slightly older than them. Sometimes there are abusers that are abusing kids because someone is abusing them. So we need to be very aware that sexual abuse isn't just having an adult abuse or sexually touch or inappropriately, because sexual abuse isn't just touching. That's another thing that we're going to talk about and debunk. It is not just touching. Sexual abuse also includes showing pornographic things, talking to children about sex. Sexting is sex abuse. So if you have kids that are, texting, you want to be careful and mindful of what they're receiving and what they're sending, because your kids can get in a lot of trouble for that. So I know y'all heard in the story sometime about kids getting in trouble with the law because they're sharing nudes that maybe another girl their age sent to them. If they reshare that with someone else, that is considered
child pornography.
Child pornography, and that is sexual abuse as well. So it's not just touching. It's a multitude of things that people may not be aware of, so they may not know that they may need to talk to somebody about it. So we're going to definitely get into that. And so first, Nat, I'm sure that you know some survivors yourself.
Absolutely.
What is that experience like for you, knowing survivors? I know personally someone very close to you that is a survivor, and I've heard their story before. What was that like for you as a support person? Because you go through it too. So even if you aren't the one that was abused, seeing what that abuse does to the family structure and to that person that you love can be very trying as well. So if you feel comfortable, share with us what that was like for you.
For sure. I know for me, I've always been a counselor or a listening ear for my peers, for people older than me. So not only was it my sister really close to my family that experienced that, but friends and colleagues and people that I've come in contact with seem to really open up to me, even if we haven't known each other for long periods of time. And I'm really blessed that I can be that for people, because some people never tell anyone what's going on with them. So for me, again, with knowing people in short periods of time, or again, it may be my elders or it may be my youth that I'm working with or teaching, for them to come out and tell me something that they have never said aloud before, that they've never told anyone else, I take that as a large honor to be the person that they can share that with. And so ever since I was a kid, I've had these conversations. I've had these conversations with young girls that have lived through it. I've had these type of conversations with young men that have been through it. Again, working with youth, I've had conversations with my teens that I was teaching that have lived through it, and when their families don't even know. Or they know, but they're not really doing anything about it. Again, we're going to talk about that as well. So, I mean, where it was happening in the church, where there was like pastors in the church, or reverends, or whatever you want to, ministers in the church that were doing it, versus people who I knew. I had a very close friend who was sexually abused by her brother when her parents would leave the house. And she was an adult, and her parents still did not know. And she still had to, of course, as her brother, interact with him, even in situations where once they were out, and it wasn't just him, but then his friends as well. And he stood by and let it happen. So it is really, really unfortunate that these things are happening, and that these people, men and women, feel that they can't say it. They can't say anything. They can't face They can't say what happened, but they have to a lot of times face the abuser. Like, I couldn't imagine looking at my brother every day when he's my abuser and not saying anything in that household. To be grown, and this happened
sit at family dinners and holidays and
on a day-to-day basis
and keep quiet. And if you bring it up, you hushed away, and a lot of times you're the person that gets made to feel like you've done something wrong. So first and foremost,
and I think that's why a lot of times they don't say anything other than to selected people, if they ever say anything, because they feel like they'll be judged.
Honestly, the first reason why people don't speak out is because they feel that they're not going to be believed. And that's the same thing with any kind of sexual violence, period. Most people keep that to themselves is because nobody's going to believe me. And the reason that they believe that is because of probably things that they've seen before. So if it's a family generational curse, you hear stories, how, your family will operate and the people that they may protect. So they don't want to say anything because they're afraid that I'm not going to be believed. Then not only are they afraid that they're not going to be believed, that abuser uses that as a tool to prevent them from talking about it. That's one of the number one strategies that abusers use to silence victims.
If you say anything, no one's gonna believe you. And then if they're really young, they just straight up tell them like, you caused this, or you're to blame, or you
allowed it, you consented to it, you didn't stop me, you went along with it. When most likely, if they went along with it, they were afraid not to go along with it, so they did.
Or even just, this is our little secret, don't tell anybody.
Don't tell anybody. It's a game. There is a grooming process that happens before they actually touch your children, and so it's very important that parents are aware of that grooming process first, that they're paying attention to certain things, they're pushing the limits a little more every time to see what they can get away with and what the child won't say and what will happen, if they'll be more likely to comply, if they will not. And they're watching you. In fact, another myth about sexual abuse is that it's strangers. So wrong. 93% of sexual abusers are people that the victims know. They are familiar people. They are family. They are acquaintances of the family, so close family members. And they may be neighbors or people around in the neighborhood. They're very rarely, only 7% of the time, is it some stranger. People say, you be careful because,
and that's a
stranger gonna touch you.
Very small percentage. 7%?
Just 7%.
It's a super small percentage.
Only.
And so I think as parents, as guardians, as aunts, as uncles, as mentors, we have to be very mindful again of those signs, and then what people are doing or saying to our children. I'm not making my son give you no hug if he don't want to. He's not allowed to sit on nobody's lap but mine. And at a certain point, that's not happening no more. Like, I'm not allowing certain things to happen. And if he doesn't feel comfortable around you, that's okay.
It's okay.
And you need to let children
okay.
know.
Yeah, and let your kids that they are the boss of their bodies. Like, I know full bodily autonomy. I know that a lot of people feel weird and having certain conversations, but the sooner you're talking to your kids about their body parts and their body rights, the safer they are going to become, because they'll have a sense of ownership over their bodies. To your point, I don't make my kids hug anybody they don't want to hug. I don't want people kissing on my kids like that. I don't appreciate that. My daughter, I wouldn't let her sit on laps at a certain point because it just wasn't appropriate. Maybe nestled on the side, but not sitting directly on laps. That's super important as well, because that's all part of a grooming process that people are not aware of at times. It starts as a little game. It starts as just feel comfortable to sit on my lap. It's not a big deal. You're just sitting here, and it goes from there. So you do want to be mindful of that. one of the things that I come across a lot when I'm doing Erins Law. So for those of you that don't know what Erins Law is, you should be having it in your school. In the state of Illinois, it is a legal requirement for all public schools to have Erins Law programming in their schools. It's a once a year presentation. So someone comes in and they tell your children about bodily autonomy and how to prevent themselves against child sexual abuse. Believe it or not, I have so many families that opt their children out of Erins Law programming. So you do have the option to opt your children out, but I would not recommend that you opt your children out. A lot of parents think sexual abuse prevention, they think we're teaching sexual education because we teach this.
But I don't see the point of opting out of sexual education either.
But it's a very touchy thing because parents feel like they should be responsible for teaching their kids about those things. But what parents also fail to recognize is that your kids are getting those things from other kids as little as preschoolers.
And that's that part. Because I mean, the way you explain sexual assault, most people will think it's like physical touch or even, saying certain things to children or showing certain things to children. But the fact that we think it's an adult versus a child thing. But like I mentioned, the young lady who unfortunately was sexually assaulted by her brother, or, some of the things that you mentioned, like showing body parts. Yeah. We have to understand that children are very curious. And they are, if they're learning their body, I don't know if anyone has ever been around a little boy before, but he's like, hey, there's something there. They're whipping it out at random. They touching it. You know what I'm saying? They looking at it. They like, what is this thing? So they are naturally curious. So if you don't tell them, hey, that is what this is. This is this, then they're going to try to figure it out on their own. And then when they see something that's different, like, oh, your body's different from mine. What is this? What does this do? They're curious. So why not explain to them, okay, even if it starts with you, mommy's a girl. Mommy's body is different from yours. You're a boy. You have these things. So that way they're not like, oh, what's this? What's that? When they see somebody else, it's like, oh, I already know what that is. All right, my mama told me, or my daddy told me what that is. I know what that is. And I know that this is mine. And I know that you can't touch it. Those type of situations, because kids are naturally curious. And at very early age, I remember being in third grade, as early as third grade, where the conversation started. I remember being younger than that, where people trying to flash things, young boys.
I remember being younger than that. Younger than that. It happens much younger than people realize. And it's
third grade was where the conversations were happening, where they were actually saying that they were doing certain things. And I'm like, hold on. And I'm in the same class. I'm like, how, who, what, when, where, why?
Certain things, have seen certain things, know certain things.
In third grade. How old is a third grade?
The third grader is usually about 8.
That's ridiculous.
About 7 or 8 years old. Mm-hmm.
That is absolutely and utterly ridiculous. That is a child.
It is, but that's why it's super important for parents to not shy away from having these conversations and being very in tune with the fact that their kids are going to pick up these things outside of them. And the best tools you have is to have those conversations. Arm your kids with the truth, arm them with knowledge. So when they're hearing all of these falsehoods from kids that don't know what they're talking about because they haven't had those talks with their parents, you're equipping them with tools they need to keep themselves protected. You can't.
That's also where a lot of young people get caught up in situations because they don't fully understand sex, or they don't fully understand, again, the autonomy of their body and that they don't have to give it to anyone. They end up having sex because somebody said they should. They end up doing something because a boyfriend was going to leave them because they didn't, or a girlfriend was going to leave them because they didn't. And then they don't know what they're doing. So I remember having conversations.
Okay. Sex is also glamorized to kids in media now. Mm-hmm. So there are a lot more exposure to sexual things than what I had growing up. I mean, I know I tell everybody I'm 25, but at 38, there were certain things watching just mainstream TV that you did not see. Like if you wanted to see certain things, you saw those things on the cable channel. You had to have
and that was after dark.
That was after dark. You had to have the HBO channel to see those things. But now in so many different shows that family members. We got a special guest coming in. Hey, Nikki.
Hey, how's it going? How
Hello.
Thanks for joining us.
Good.
Nikki, introduce yourself to the people. I'm excited you said you would chime in. I'm like, oh, Nikki's
I just got a couple minutes. Hey, everybody. I'm Nikki Patan. I'm the Community Engagement Director for the Chicago Alliance Against Sexual Exploitation. So this is totally within my wheelhouse. So thank you for tagging me in. I appreciate that. I appreciate
No, thank you for coming. Because
Thanks for asking for the tag.
Look, thank you.
You were early, like tag me in.
I was like, I know this is emotional labor. So if you need to tag me in, I'm ready. I'm ready to go.
It's
Like,
a lot.
got my Vaseline in my back pocket. Let's get
it. Your ring's out.
I at SPM all the time, and just period. And like I was telling everybody, being the prevention educator, I do Erins Law. But so many kids, you get so many disclosures, and their parents have no idea. They don't know anything. They want to tell their parents, and there are a lot of Black and brown kids that are suffering in silence. They are the most afraid to tell their parents, honestly, especially Black community. And we need to stop that. We need to stop it. I'm going to turn it over to Nikki, let you come in. I know you said you only have a couple minutes, so hit us with what you got in those 2 minutes.
Well, so a couple things. The first is that I did a book talk with Brenda Myers-Powell, who, if you're not familiar with her, Brenda Myers-Powell is the founder and one of the co-founder and executive director of the Dreamcatcher Foundation. So the Dreamcatcher Foundation is one of the only Black women survivor-led organization that goes out onto the street, right, to support those in the sex trade, which of course is mostly us, right? It's mostly young Black and brown folk. And so they go out there with resources, with condoms, with information, with support. They just opened a brand new drop-in center. But Brenda also just dropped her memoir, like literally a week ago yesterday. And what's remarkable about her memoir is called Leaving Breezy Street, because her nickname on the street was Breezy. And so Brenda had 25 years in the trade as a, and I'm using her language, like she calls herself prostitute. She was addicted to drugs, but her start began way before she was grown. Like, she started being trafficked like as young as like 14 and grew up on like the west side of Chicago. And so I say that to say that often when we think of things like human trafficking or sex trafficking, we think of these like little white girls getting snatched up from Iowa and like thrown in the back of vans, but it looks very, very different today. And when Brenda was experiencing this was like in the 70s. So even what she experienced looks different from today. So today it looks like the internet. It looks like somebody like popping up in your kid's inbox on Facebook or even YouTube or TikTok or whatever, and taking advantage of that vulnerability, right? Of like an unstable family life, or nobody's really paying attention to me, or I got all this stuff going on and nobody's really listening to me. And that person provides a listening ear. I think that's the thing that people don't get about predators, is that they prey on vulnerability. They can sniff it out, right? And like, that's like the drug to them. I think a lot of people get sexual abuse and sexual violence twisted because they think it's about like somebody, who is like sexually turned on. And that's not the thing that turns them on. The thing that turns them on is that power,
the control,
all of that. Like, man, Brenda has this story, and y'all, I swear to God, please go get Breezy Street, because that book is, it's a hard read. Like, Brenda has led a difficult life, but Brenda's also like hilarious. She is like, irreverent. She has turned, she's literally like the embodiment of like taking lemons and turning it into lemonade, because now she's like helping so many people. And so there's like two amazing stories in that book. The first is when this dude that wanted to be really rough with her and literally sexually assault her, got her into the car, the room, or wherever. And she decided to turn the tables on him because she knew that power and control is what he was looking for. So when he was like about that, she was just like, ooh, yeah, I like that. Ooh, yeah, do that. And he was shook. Okay. He was shookest. And he was like, okay, I'm good. And she's like, no, we can do this again. Like, come on, hit me up next week. And he was like, no, I'm dropping you. I'm like, no, I'm good. So, right. So that story to me indicates exactly what I'm talking about, which is that it's a power and control situation. The other story, which is really just a straight up funny story, is that after all this was said and done, And Brenda was like downstate, right, with the state senators in the late 90s. And she was like lobbying to like get bills
Come on, sis.
passed and get legislation passed to protect folks. She went to a very young state senator, Obama, and she was like, Obama, we need to get this process passed because my knees don't work anymore and I can't go out there again. And Obama was like, okay, bet. And he went onto the state senate floor and was like, y'all, we need to get this bill passed because Brenda's knees don't work no more. So we need to get this, and the bill passed. And now, and that was it. So it's like so many like amazing stories like that in the book. But I think that Brenda's book is, you know, we could be cliche and like call it a cautionary tale, but I feel like Brenda comes from the same place that so many of us come from, right? She comes from a place where there's like a lot of family dysfunction. You know, her mother passed by the, you know, when she was a baby. So she was raised by her grandmother. That's the story for a lot of us. Her grandmother, you know, working to make ends meet, doing everything that she could to like take care of her, but also like an alcoholic, right? To cope with the stress and the pressure of that, and pretty violent herself. And exactly what you said earlier, this is what our grandmother's lap. If you're sitting in somebody's lap, then that's on you. Right? That was the message that Brenda was given. Another thing that Brenda said is that the violence around her, the domestic violence, watching couples like literally physically scrap it out, was so normalized that when it began happening to her, she didn't feel like it was anything wrong with that because that was all that she saw, right? That was all that was represented. And so I think that these are all things that we have to consider when it comes to our young people, not just like what we're saying, right? It's not like do as I say and not as I do. They're going to do what you do. So what are you doing in front of your young people? What are you doing?
What are you allowing?
Right, exactly. And what are you allowing them to take in? You mentioned like Erins Law, which is a dope law, but we also just got another law passed called the Ensuring Success in Schools Law, also known as ESSL. And that also guarantees like one, like rights for things like teenagers who are pregnant, access to station, access to education about sexual violence prevention education. I know that people are like, you know, real like weird about, well, I don't want, you know, this person and that person teaching these like values to my kids, but I'm gonna put it like this. As a parent, and I'm a single parent and my kids like right now in the background, like, Mom, I want dinner. Come on, like finish up, right? One thing I can say as a parent is that there's so much that we are responsible for. Right, clothing and taking care of and just keeping like a whole ass like human like alive, right? Like that's a big responsibility. For me, knowing that there are folks who are coming into the schools, and largely, let me just say this, it's actually Black and brown people, because that's how my career started. I started as a prevention educator way back in 2005. Right. And so that is who is going into your schools. It's not like a bunch of stuff that is not aligned with our values as Black people. And given the historical context of sexual violence and how it's impacted our community, like this whole country was built on sexual violence because they bred the workforce that they wanted. Right. And I think people forget that like even the criminal legal system and the way that it functions and does not serve us. Right. It doesn't serve us, and it doesn't serve like rape victims. I don't know why people think the criminal legal system all of a sudden works when it comes to like rape victims. It does not. It does not.
It's not even broken. It was never fixed. It was never fixed.
Because it was built by predators, right? It wasn't built for us, and it wasn't built by us. It wasn't built by Black people, and it wasn't built by people who experience like sexual violence, right? So to me, I think as Black people, one thing that we have to understand is that, you know, just a little bit of history for y'all. The very first person, the very first woman in this country who was like, you can't touch me without consent, was a slave by the name of Maria Stuart. And in the 1850s, the first legal case ever. I know, I'm coming. I'm going to make it. You want to say hi?
Hi.
Hi. Yeah, I know you're hungry. I'm wrap up in just a second. I'm just giving a real brief, like, legal law.
But I'm hungry now.
I know. I'm coming. I'm sorry. You know, you got to balance the whole thing.
He's an advocate for himself, though. I applaud that young man.
So I'm going to hop off in a second, but look up Maria Stuart, 1850s. And she was like, she was the first person in a court of law because she killed her master and was like, I'm not letting you just touch me without my permission. And that was her defense. Now she lost the case, but what's remarkable about it is that it's the first recorded case in U.S. history of a woman articulating, you cannot touch me, right, without my permission. You can't touch me without our consent. So honestly, setting these boundaries and saying, listen, you need to talk to me before you touch me, is our birthright. That's the energy that we come from. So everybody who thinks that like, oh, this is a white issue or this is what white folks do or whatever, you a whole lie. Because like Black women are the ones and Black people are the ones who have been innovating. And of course, thank you for the tambourine. Thank you. I will take that all day, every day. Thank you.
I got you. So
you know, that's our history. That's our birthright. And so for me personally, I want to see us snatch that back. I want to see us protecting ourselves and teaching our children to protect ourselves. Same thing with my kid. That's why he is as loud and as vocal and as much of a self-advocate as he is. Because from day one, I've been like, you can tell people, I don't want to hug you. I don't want to touch you.
And speak your truth.
And he'll say that to me too.
And so whoever tries to force you, like I asked my kids, I done birthed both these humans, okay? They are from me. And I asked them, do you want a hug or can I hug you? Because if they're not in the mood for me to touch them and they're not in that space,
that's okay.
They don't belong to me like that. I can't tell them that I'm a hug you.
Set that precedent.
That's it. You can even tell me when you're uncomfortable with me.
Yeah,
that's right.
Because if you can tell me of all people, then you can tell other people.
That's
so
right.
You're very comfortable with telling me when you're uncomfortable.
That's right. I mean, the mantra in our house is that we are free, happy people. I'm raising a free, happy person. That's my whole goal in life. So the part of being free, thank you, the part of being happy is about being able to say, yo, the way you touching me right now, this doesn't make me happy and this doesn't make me feel free, right? And so to be able to articulate that and for our young people to articulate that is really critically important. Y'all tossed out some statistics early on about how 1 in 4 women and 1 in 6, men. But the other statistic that people don't often mention is that only 1 in 10 Black women will report, right, that they have been assaulted or that they have been a victim of this kind of violence, which means we actually don't have a number, right? And I'm only talking about Black women. One of the reasons why we don't have statistics on like Black trans folks is because nobody has bothered to research that yet. Nobody has bothered to put the numbers to what they experience yet. And in my experience as a case manager to homeless youth and the homeless LGBTQ youth, most of whom are Black and brown, kicked out of their house by their parents from the South Side and the West Side, in a state that used to only have 24 beds in the whole state for youth under the age of 18 for a homeless youth population of 50 to 60,000, most of whom are our kids, our babies.
They are.
Right? All these issues cross and intersect and align and connect. And so I just wanted to, I gotta go because I gotta go make this kid dinner, but I just wanted to like come through and just drop like a little bit of my own sort of like insight into this. And just to say too, that I'm really glad that y'all are cracking open this conversation because it is like the conversation of, and it has always been the conversation and we've never been able to have it. Okay, dinner time for you. Okay, you got it. All right. Bye, y'all. I love you both. Bye.
I just love her. She's amazing.
Yes. That's so appreciated and it's so real. The craziest part is that we don't even really, if we think the 1 in 4 is scary or ridiculous, we don't even really know. If we think
and just to go to piggyback off her, touching on the 1 in 10 Black women will report. And half the time they don't even want, that one doesn't want to report. And the way she is treated, because also part of my job is to be a medical legal advocate. So what that means is we go into hospitals and we provide advocacy and support to sexual assault survivors that come into the ER to be checked out. And we, support them through the kit. So that's the evidence collection kit, also known as the rape kit. We just be an advocate for them, period, because most of those survivors are going to be re-victimized by the officers that's coming in and questioning them. They're going to come in and question them. I remember having a case.
Like it's an interrogation, like they did something.
And that's the idea is that, people and even children are responsible for their own abuse. I had a case once where I know this baby had something happen to her. But because it probably happened to her, because she probably was a place she shouldn't have been, she was afraid to tell what really happened. So she lied about how she was hurt. But the detectives were like, You lied about the whole thing now. And I was trying to talk to her, but even her parents, her poor parents were like, you know, you lied, we are upset at you. But I don't think that child lied. I know she was telling the truth. But part of her fear was having to tell her parents, I went somewhere I wasn't supposed to go. I didn't ask you, could I go there? I wasn't supposed to be there. And I'm afraid to tell you because you're going to be angry at me that now someone hurt me.
And I mean, they proved her right with their reactions in the hospital. And one of your favorite words is rapport. Building that rapport with your children. And we were just talking about this on A Mother's Love because we were talking about parenting in an age of technology and how if our children feel like they can't come to us and talk to us freely without being judged or punished when something happens or they get into situations, which unfortunately they will. I don't know. None of us ain't never been in a situation. I mean, the situations vary, but we done all been in situations. And if we can't come to the people who are supposed to be there to guide us and help us no matter what, then we're stuck. And a lot of young people feel stuck. And working with the young people, teenagers specifically, I know for a fact that they feel like they don't have a voice in their household.
Feel like they don't have a voice in their household. They feel misunderstood. They feel shame. They feel anger. They feel all of these things that make them the prime target for an abuser, because it's so much more easier for him to groom or her to groom, because there are sexual abusers that are female too. And I want to talk about that because, you know, one of the things that bugs me a whole lot in our community is young boys having sex with older women and that being like a rite of passage.
Yeah.
And that is sexual abuse. Yeah. That is not cool. It is not cute. One thing that I did not allow is for people to tell me that my son was so cute and he's so handsome, and when he grow up, you get your overgrown, old, nasty self.
You hold that.
Away from my child. He's not your little boyfriend. None of that. Don't tell him that. It's not cute. I don't think it's funny. And you're not allowed to tell that to my son. And you're not allowed to tell that to me without me going clean off. Because
we should not be ashamed of checking people. When it comes to ourselves, when it comes to our children, or anyone else for that matter, when you're doing it respectfully, and when you're doing it rightfully. Now, I ain't saying just haul off on people for no reason, but in those situations, you have to set your boundaries for Absolutely. You and your children. And when you set them for you and your children, then your children take note. And they understand that when something happens to them,
they that boundary
defend themselves.
They keep that boundary. They definitely know that it's not okay. So if someone else says that to me, that's not okay. I got to go with my gut on that one. Teach your kids about their instincts. If somebody says something to them that makes them feel uncomfortable, that's enough. That's enough. They don't need to touch you if they just make you feel uncomfortable.
Like if they look at you and make you feel uncomfortable.
I said, if anybody ever make the hairs on your arm stand up or make you feel like you feel when you're in a dark room, you're in a basement, you're in an attic, if they make you feel like that just from being in their presence, that's enough. What do you do in them situations? You run. It don't have to be stranger danger, because as we said, most of the perpetrators are people that they know. They know these people.
Yeah.
And they are harming these kids. It makes it easier to have a familiarity with them. So you want to definitely make sure that you talking to your kids about all
and if they don't feel comfortable talking to you, you putting your children at a huge disadvantage and a huge target on their head. Because if they're not talking to you, they're going to go talk to somebody else. And that somebody else, like Nikki was saying, may not be the person you want them talking to.
And it happens so easily, as to a mother's love point, with an age of technology. I want to know what games my kids are playing. I want to know what YouTube videos they're watching, and
check the history.
I need to know what's going on. You know, I've told my daughter, she hears me, especially in this pandemic, has heard me do my presentations. I did the presentations at her school when it was time for them to have Erins Law. And so she knows this in and out. But we once had an issue where I was like, who is this that you're talking to on Roblox? Roblox was blocked. So I said, it's no, and they weren't talking about anything inappropriate, but it was something that made me feel uncomfortable. I said, you don't need to talk or message with anybody on Roblox because you don't know these people. This person is a stranger. If they're not your brother or your cousins or your friends from school, you don't message with anybody. So I blocked it for a long time, and then now she's earned the ability to play the game, but the messaging capability is blocked. She still doesn't have a social media. I know she asked a lot. Like, all of her friends have social media. She's going into high school. It's too much of an easy way in. It's such an easy bridge.
And if you are going to allow your children to have social media, because that's your choice as a parent to not or what to do. But if you are going to do that, and even if they don't have social media, just using the internet, period. One of the things we were saying is you have to have these conversations with your children, because what ends up happening if you don't have these type of conversations is that children feel like they're invincible. You was a kid once. What's going to happen to me? Oh, I seen it on the news, but that ain't going to happen to me. We feel like we're invincible. Until something happens, unfortunately, we feel like it'll never happen to us. And so it's really important to have these conversations, but then also set rules and boundaries for them and set precedents for them. So even when you're not around, hopefully, they're going to remember what you said and abide by that. And if, again, they end up in a situation that they're not supposed to be in, they can feel comfortable enough with you to come to you immediately so that you can rectify their situation.
You absolutely need to be approachable by your kids. I can't stress this enough. And being able to have that respect, that rapport, that camaraderie with your children is going to help you keep them safe, because your arms only reach so far. So you need to be their conscience. You need to be in their minds, even when you're not in their presence. And the best way that you do that is by talking to them, having very open and honest conversations. There is nothing off limits for a conversation from me with my kids. If they're to the point where they're coming to ask me about it, then they already know too much. And I need to make sure that they know the right things.
And your voice is louder than everybody else.
Anybody else is in the room and wherever they go, in the back of their mind, even than theirs at times, because they're still growing and maturing, and they're not going to always make the best decisions or recognize when something is a danger, going back to that invincibility complex. But I need them to know that no matter what, come and talk to me. It is never your fault. It's never your fault. I'm never going to blame you. I'm not going to be mad. I just want to make sure that that person can't do that to you again. And the best way we stop that from happening is by you to tell me what's going on, and so I can keep you safe.
And unfortunately,
with our kids,
too many times the parents, after the person has been victimize them more. Too many times I've seen where, even like, again, on social media, everything's so there in your face and available. A young lady recorded a conversation she had with her mother. She video recorded it, and she was telling her mom, like, your boyfriend is on that other with me, like basically telling her straight up what was going on. And the mom was just cleaning up the kitchen casually, like, girl, whatever, you need to stop walking around with that little stuff on. He don't want you. Bop 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 bop. So you're choosing this man over your daughter, who's straight up coming to you and telling you what's going on. That's a problem.
It's such a deep-rooted problem in our community.
And then another part of that too, though, is the fact that the parent flips the situation on the children. One young lady, I was listening to the radio station, I think it was Joel Osteen, and the woman had wrote a book, and she was talking about her life story. It was a white woman, and she lived a life, baby. But one of the women was reading her books, and so she ended up being a teen mom. She was molested as a child, and she was because of that, she told a friend, and the word got out. And kids is cruel, so because of that, it became this thing, like she was loose. So boys was trying it, and as to a certain extent, she started allowing that, which happens so many times with young women and young men as well, that has gone through situations like that. Then she switched schools. She started getting her life together, because she saw when she switched location, she moved towns, new school, new people. She started living the life she wanted to live. There was no, stigmas or anything over her. But that's when she ended up actually getting pregnant, because now, saying the boys actually wanted to get to know her, wanted to talk to her, and she allowed some other things. She ended up getting pregnant. She thought it was the worst thing, but realized it was a blessing. And then ended up getting into a domestic violence situation because of self-esteem issues. Because she said he was good looking, he was a bodybuilder, he was a doctor. She was like, why did this type of man want me? But okay. But he ended up,
if she's been traumatized and she's been abused.
And she didn't have that self-esteem. And that again happens with so many of our babies that go through sexual assault. But he ended up getting on drugs, being violent, stalking her, just beating her, all types of craziness. And eventually she started talking about how she had to fight her way up out of that move, and just straight up, she had to give her child to the father, and she just had to, she left the country to get away from this man. Eventually she ended up coming back. She ended up finding her now husband for umpteen years, who's an amazing man, and just got her life shifted. But she said after writing this book and letting all of this out, one woman contacted her and was like, you told my story. Like, she had been through something very, very similar, because again, these are so many of our young people's stories who have been through something like this.
Right.
But she said the lady said that when she told her mother that she was assaulted, the first thing her mother did was blame her. She said the first thing her mother said was, where were you? I told you not to bop, 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 bop. And she said from that moment forth, she stopped talking, and she does not have a relationship with her mother from that moment.
We are taught very young, almost from transition from the womb, that we are responsible for what happens to us based on how we dress, based on what environment we in, and based on the fact that men are going to be too much enticed and they're not going to have self-control. And this is a problem. This is something that I've completely broken the cycle with when it comes to our kids. I tell my son the same thing I tell my daughter, is that if someone touches you without your consent, without your permission, or in a way that makes you feel uncomfortable, or in a way that scares you, it is their fault. They are to blame. It is never about what you had on, what you had to drink, where you were at, what you were doing, how you were dancing, who knew you, who you had sex with. It doesn't matter. That never ever gives anybody the right to touch you or violate your body. I tell my son, I tell him now, and at 10, he'll be 11 in just a couple weeks. We had a conversation where I said he gets it. Just a random conversation, because he's like, I'm never going to pressure my girlfriend, and I'm not going to allow anyone to pressure me into sex. It's going to be something that I want to do when I feel that it's time for me to do it, and vice versa. And also in that conversation, he understood the importance of when someone can give you permission. At 10, he understands from talking to him what it takes for someone to be able to give you consent and permission. You do not have consent if they're intoxicated. You do not have consent if they're asleep. You do not have consent if they're passed out. You do not have consent if they cannot consciously tell you, I give you my consent. And it's important that he knows that. You need to make sure that you have someone's consent before you do anything, before you kiss them, before you invade their space, before you cross a boundary. You need to make sure what their boundaries are and that you have consent to take it there. And
also knowing that consent once don't mean it's consent again.
It's not consent. It's very specific. It's very specific. It's for that one time, that one thing. When we're doing presentations, we use the Fries model. So those of you that are watching, look up the Fries model. It's super easy to remember the rules of what consent looks like. Your kids should be getting this information when they are receiving Erins Law programming in their schools. But when you have
consent, get it in the household before they
should be continuing the conversation at home. You need to continue the conversation, because we come one time, once a year, to talk to your kids. That's it, just one time a year. And in that time, from when we visit them again, they are susceptible to being violated or abused. So you need to continue that conversation beyond just that one time. It's not
And this
over.
stuff needs reinforcement
It
because
needs
this is
reinforcement.
serious.
It's serious. So the Fry's model is that consent is freely given. That means that you're giving it because you feel comfortable to, you want to. No one has coerced you or forced you to. It's freely given. It's reversible at any time. That means that I said yes. I changed my mind now. I don't feel
Mhm.
comfortable. I can take that back, and now it's a no. It's in
Looks like we lost Sante. Or did
that. Oh, okay, hold on. Something weird went on there. I think
do we have a guest in the middle there?
I was like, what is happening? This is weird. We gonna go back. We got a surprise weird guest here. That's all right. We gonna leave it there because I'm here and see what happens. Maybe it'll go back. But it's informed. You're giving consent for this one thing. So like if you know that even matters if someone's having intercourse and they only give consent for vaginal intercourse, but they didn't consent to anything like anal or oral, then you have to have individual consent for any other act that that person has not given you consent for. You got to ask for that. It's not a given because y'all have intercourse that all of these things are up for grabs as well.
And
then
it starts young with children when just saying yes means yes and no means no.
and no means no, and nobody can change your mind. Consent does not mean convince me. It doesn't mean convince me to say yes. And it's enthusiastic. I feel good. I want to say yes. I'm doing it with a smile. We all comfortable. It's right. And it's specific. Going back to that specific thing. It's this one thing, this one time, this one instance. It doesn't mean that now you have permission every single time.
Right.
Whenever you want, whenever it comes or the spirit moves you to, no, you have that permission that one time. Is very specific for that one thing and nothing else. And we need to be telling our kids that they have the power to only say yes to certain things, especially when they are teenagers. Maybe I feel comfortable giving you a kiss, but I don't feel comfortable with other stuff. You need to be telling them that they have the power to say no to anything outside of what they don't feel comfortable.
And that confidence to say it and mean it and be okay with it. Because again, at that age group, everything is, my friend doing and the popular people doing and the music and the TV doing and whatever is cool. But it takes a really strong, confident individual to say, I said what I said, and I don't care what everybody else is saying and doing.
I mean what I mean.
And if that's what you want, go get one of them because it ain't me. Like that, that as parents and as, again, mentors and guardians and aunts and uncles, like to instill that confidence because it takes a village. Because it may not be the parent that gets to have this conversation with the young people. It may be an auntie. It may be an uncle that they feel closer to, And so we have to make sure we instill that confidence.
I just love Nikki's comments. But it's facts.
Shout out to still watching and cooking that baby some dinner.
I swear, it's all facts. They get it then. So why is it so foreign when it's not you? And the rabbit has the gun, right? It's like you have to, better, and you have to operate with knowing better. And I think sometimes
we also have to teach our sons and our daughters the same thing. Like
that's what I'm saying.
The girls to wear short skirts or tight clothes and start telling our sons.
I tell my daughter now, I don't care what you wearing or what you ain't wearing. It's never okay. I tell my son the same thing. I don't care what you're doing or where you at. It's never okay. We need to be telling them the same things. He is responsible for his actions and what he does. He is responsible for respecting other people and vice versa. It does not give you the right. Don't you ever listen to nobody because I'm going to check him on it. I don't care how old he gets. If I ever hear of him saying that, especially because he wants to go off to college, I'm having these conversations now because a lot of sexual violence also happens on college campuses.
Mm-hmm.
It happens at these parties. It happens at these kickbacks in somebody's room because, y'all drinking and y'all having a good time, and somebody feels like because, you a little loose off the goose that it's okay to keep going and doing things, and that's not okay. And we need to be holding
and making sure we raise kids that's comfortable enough to check other people. Because if you're a bystander to this foolishness, then you're a part of the problem. Just like if you're a bystander to systemic racism or anything else, you're a part of the problem. So we also have to raise kids that's not only just comfortable within themselves to say, no, I'm not going to allow you to do that to me, or no, I'm not going to do that to someone else. But you need to be strong enough to step to somebody else and say, dude, that's not cool. Or I see what you're doing and you need to cut it out. We have to protect each other.
I want to address this comment that Nikki just put up, and it's so true about let's normalize young men saying no without questioning their sexuality. Super important, because the way my son gonna be set up is he's gonna only be comfortable doing what he feels comfortable doing. And people are quick to peer pressure someone and say, oh, you're not doing it, you're not violating somebody, that must mean that your sexuality is that question, and it's not okay. And we definitely need to get that programming out. That means that there's something wrong with you if that's where your mind is going to, and then maybe you need to talk about that or do some internal searching and understand what you feel and who you are. But it's a way to kind of control people and push people to do what they want them to do, which is why people bring that up the first time someone goes against the grain, because it's just so deep rooted that it's acceptable for men to do those things, that they have free reign over women's bodies, and they have the power to do whatever they want with women's bodies, and that women are for men. And so they are taught this very young, and we need to break that cycle and tell them that it's not okay, which also
there's no such thing as boys will be boys. I ain't trying to hit that.
No such thing. It's no such thing. And that goes back to us addressing sexual abuse and how we guard our children. If we start programming them small that this is appropriate, what you're doing is you're making it more likely that that child is not going to recognize that something's wrong. They're going to think that this is what's supposed to happen. I'm hearing you say that boys will be boys to other people. If you have like older kids in the house and you have older sons and you kind of letting them run and do certain things, and you see your daughters, you do have smaller daughters and they're recognizing and seeing these things, because kids are a lot more aware of things than we give them credit for.
Absolutely.
They're seeing and internalizing and processing a lot more than what we think they are seeing and processing.
And they have feelings about it before they can articulate the feelings
before they can express what it is to you that they feel. So you need to be mindful of the message that you're setting for your child, for your daughter, because you can't say, oh, well, that's different for your brother, which happens a whole lot. We're going to talk about that, because it's not any different. Because guess what? There's going to be somebody else's son that's going to be not told the same thing. And then they're going to think that it's okay for your daughter to be their victim, your daughter to be touched and violated. So we really have to stop having these narratives that boys will be boys and it's okay. And we also need to have stop having these narratives that it's cute, or you the man if your young son is messing with an older woman. Because I'm not a big fan of this whole cougar thing. And I'm not a big fan of this whole cougar thing, because to me it's borderline weird. So like Robert has this joke, because I'm only 7 months older than him, just 7, but he likes to call me a cougar or a sugar mama. And I'm like, look, don't call me that. And I don't feel that that's funny, because I do feel like there's a certain kind of like predatory sense to it at times. You got to really be careful with that. And so you just want to make sure that you're not telling your young teenage sons, you're not dapping them up and telling them that it's cool if they out here bagging older women and their kids. That is sexual abuse. That is not a rite of passage.
Who was that? Was it Boosie?
Girl, yes, that was that clown. That said that mess that he was proud and bragging.
But that means he has the same trauma from his childhood.
Oh, of course, him and tons of other men that will never say anything, because again, it's the thing that's gonna get you to dap up. Your guys are gonna salute you if that happens. It's a rite of passage. It's cool. It's supposed to be what guys like. If you could pull an older woman, then blah 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 blah. It's not okay. It is something very wrong with thinking that is appropriate for a little boy to be with a grown woman. And for him to be talking about his 12-year-old son and nephew at the time, I believe, and paying and purchasing women times or prostitutes or strippers to come over and give
That's
them
wrong on so many levels.
it was just, I was disgusted. I was so angry. I went on a warpath of arguing with people on Facebook. I had to unplug because there were so many men that were saying that it's okay, and they was praising him, and they were doing it all under the guise of trying to keep him in check with his sexuality, which was also a bunch of bull.
But see, we also, this is why I say we have to hold young men and young women to the same standard, because a lot of the times fathers and mothers let stuff slide, like we talked about with the young men, but they want to make sure the daughter's buttoned up tight and this, that, and the third. But we're not realizing that when we're not holding these young men accountable for their actions and teaching them about their own bodies and how they have dominion over their bodies, and they shouldn't share that with anybody, and soul ties and a whole lot of other stuff that needs to be talked about when you're talking about sex. When that happens, who are you raising that buttoned up, beautiful, amazing daughter for? If ain't nobody raising young men to be amazing, upstanding men, who are you raising her for? Because she gonna get out into these world and she gonna run into nobody but that same young man that you raising. Like, who? And that's the thing. If rape culture is what it is, when we make it okay for men to feel like, again, like you said, they have ownership over women's body, and they have ownership over their body, but their ownership looks like sleeping with whoever, whatever, including older women. Now, to your point, older women, they're wrong. Because it had been many cases where school teachers then ran off with a little 16-year-old boy or something.
And had babies.
And had babies and darn near got married in certain places where it was legal.
This is true.
You know what I'm saying? It had been in many of them cases, but that's a child. That's a child, though. I don't care if you was 21, you grown, and that was a child, though. And the thing is, once you over the age of grown, I mean, 25, whatever, be with whoever you want to be with. When you grown and you're taking care of yourself, you're making your own money, you're making your own decisions, you're living your own life, then you can be with whoever age you want to be with if they're grown.
I challenge that even. I feel like when it comes to those type of things, you need to be able to process what you're getting yourself into. Long term, not beyond sex, beyond the moment of feeling, whatever feelings you get, but long term, do you understand what you are entering into? Because there are a lot of teenagers that have been on their own for many years because maybe their family situation has said that. That doesn't mean that they are.
No, I'm saying grown. When you grown,
okay, because you need to be able to process beyond being able to cover your own checks and balances. Right. But you're able
that to plus the age wise and mental stability wise. I'm talking about grown and you know what you're,
because there are some times where people that are much older look for younger people because they want to mold them into what they want them to be, and they want to have control. And that's a different situation. And I'm not saying that that's the case in every situation either where that happens, but it is a big part of the dynamic. They're looking for someone that they have more power over, that may not have a lot of awareness of what they're getting themselves into. And they're looking to be that person to control that person and mold them to who they want to be. And so sometimes, there are a lot of people that get in situations with older people and they don't realize that now they've entered into an unhealthy relationship with this person, an unhealthy dynamic. So it's really beyond just age. It's really about being able to process where you are and what you're agreeing to before you can make certain decisions, and you can make them safely, in my opinion. And sometimes that takes some of us a little longer than others. I'm 30.
I think the knowing who you are part. Because if you know who you are, no one can make you do or become anyone that you don't want to be. So wherever that is, as far as mentality, because like you said, it's different for different people. You have to know yourself. And if you start with, again, raising your child, starting at baby, to adulthood and being comfortable voicing their opinion, being comfortable saying no, being comfortable trying new things, and being comfortable with figuring out who they are. So once they figure out who they are and they know what they're not going to do and what they are going to do, they're going to stand on that. And so when they come in contact with other people who try to challenge them, because some people just want people to do what they want them to do, they're going to be like, oh, you're not the person for me, whether that be friendship, partnership, business ship, whatever kind of ship it is. They're going to be like, oh, you're not the person I need to be in contact with. Thank you so much. Have a good one, and move around. That's the type of energy we need to be raising into our young men and our young women. We need to raise whole people who are comfortable being whole people, kind people. And when that is a thing, healing people, because we ain't never fully healed. But a lot of the stuff we're talking about is coming from trauma. So if we're working on healing ourselves as adults and we're raising these young people and we're putting those same healing concepts into them as children, they're going to grow up with that foundation of healing. That's going to become normal. We talk about all the foolishness becoming normal. The healing journey and process and tools and abundance and life and energy and love that you pour into yourself and then into your children, because you got to pour it into you first, because you got some stuff to heal from. Then pour it into your children. That becomes normal. We need to make that the new normal and diminish the amount of trauma that people are not healing from, which they pass on to other people. And it starts with the healing journey. And it starts with the resources that we need to assist people with, because a lot of people don't know how to heal.
A lot of people don't know how to heal, but I need for us in this moment and in this situation, especially when it's about us making sure that we're keeping our kids safe, is that we absolutely need to start with listening. Simply listening, paying attention, keeping an eye out, not necessarily, putting what you've heard all your life onto these kids and projecting your trauma. So yes, you need to heal, but you need to listen. If you know, a lot of times survivors of sexual abuse don't always handle it if their children become victims as well, because they have not, understood yet that was wrong, that this person shouldn't have done that. It wasn't your fault because somebody else told them that it was their fault. Because we have these narratives. We need to listen, change the narrative, stop telling people that these things are okay. Stop telling boys that they can do this. Stop telling girls that they're responsible only for safeguarding themselves. We need to be paying attention to our kids. It's okay. Like, I was a very overprotective mom. For me, I'd rather be safe than sorry. It's okay if you don't feel comfortable leaving your kids with certain places or certain people. It's okay if you don't want, it's okay. It's okay. And I knew that I had this overprotective mom persona, but there was a reason for that. And I didn't care who didn't agree with it. Not everybody had access to my children, especially when it was a time where they were too young to ask for help, or they may not know how to ask for help, or someone can have too much control over, their fear and them ability to not talk to me about stuff. I was still in the rapport building process at that point, where it was like, you can tell mommy anything. And so before I had that drilled in their head and they got it, everybody didn't need to have access to my kids. My kids didn't need to be at all these play dates and sleepovers and such, because I don't know who over there.
Come on.
I don't know who in and out of your house. And thank you for the invite, but no, thank you. And that was something that was super important to me, because a lot of times, which we kind of skated over this earlier, a lot of sexual abuse happens from other kids. It doesn't always happen with adults. There are kids that are exploring and trying to figure things out, and maybe something done happened where they realize this felt good and they want to tell this kid and they want to show this kid. They're playing house then got a little bit too serious. And that's a lot of our stories. So we need to make sure that you're not having your kids in certain situations because sex abuse does not always happen from adults. Sometimes it happens from kids their age. Sometimes it happens from kids a little older.
Mm-hmm.
And you need to be paying attention to that too. You need to be recognizing the signs. You need to be looking for stuff. You need to be talking to your kids, and talking to them. I don't mean talking at them, because sometimes it's like, well, you better tell me. If I'm coming to you and I'm saying, you better tell me, I'm going to be scared. What if I don't tell you? So now I didn't tell you right away because I was scared or whatever happened. Now, if I can't tell you because you're going to be mad that I didn't tell you. You need to be talking to your kids. Well, I want to know. I want to know if someone's hurting you. I want to help you if someone's hurting you. No one should be hurting you like that. As young as kids are able to understand, when you're getting y'all on a family vacation and you're getting ready to go swimming, you putting their swimming suits on, that's a good time to start planting the seeds. Tell your babies, nobody should touch any parts of your body where your swimming suit covers. That is how we tell kids from pre-K to first grade that these parts of your body are off limits. Any parts of your body that covers your swimsuit are your safety zones. Those are your private parts. Nobody should touch those parts of your body. You need to talk about when you do it to help them if you're potty training. You need to talk about when it's abnormal for someone's trying to help them potty train, because sometimes that can be a conditioning period too, or a grooming period as well. So you need to be planting these seeds with your kids very small. It is never too young to start telling them that this is not okay, or they shouldn't be doing this, or your body belongs to you. You need to tell them that frequently. You need to let them know that no one has the right to touch them, that their body belongs to them. And if they do, I'm here for you. I love you. I'm never going to blame you. I will believe you. That is the first thing you need to say. You come and tell mama this happened, I will believe you. I'm going to believe you right away. I'm not going to believe that you're making it up, because kids don't lie about sex abuse. They do not lie about it. And you want to make sure that you let your kid know that you're going to believe them. If somebody hurts you, I'm going to believe you. I'm not going to tell you that you're a lie. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to help you. So just tell me. Don't be afraid to tell me I love you. I want to help you. Another more important thing that we need to address is when we know as a Black community that somebody is in our family that is harming kids. When we know, protecting them lets everyone else around them know that they don't matter. And that's not okay.
Speak on it.
That's not okay
today, because it's too prevalent in our community. It's too many times where daddies and uncles and granddaddies and brothers and cousins and people know about it. Like I mentioned before, pastors and people know about it and they don't say anything.
They cover it up.
You're a part of the problem if you don't step up and say something. Of course, you don't want your family members to go to jail, but you're allowing your family members to get hurt. Is that way out?
But you don't want your family members to go to jail, but your family doing something wrong. They should go to jail. They should be stopped.
Because wrong is wrong. Just like yes is yes and no is no.
And wrong is wrong. It's not going to stop by you turning a blind eye. And if anything, it's going to only encourage the behavior. And then we have a lot of people walking around spirits broken. That is a very difficult thing to get past. People don't heal the same after that. Kids don't heal the same after that. And when you tell them to be quiet, you tell them to hush and to not tell anybody because you want to protect the person that hurt them.
That means you tell that person over that child.
Worse, you tell that kid they don't matter. So it's not even about choosing the other person. That kid internalizes it now. And now I don't matter. I don't mean anything. I'm not worthy of protection. I'm not worthy of love.
And that follows them into adulthood.
That follows them everywhere they go.
Mm-hmm.
Through adolescence, through teenage, being teenagers and young adults, when they're starting to become sexually active. You tell them
they don't have a say so they let everybody get it.
they feel like they don't matter. They feel like they deserve it. They feel like it's okay because mama didn't protect me, grandma didn't protect me, auntie didn't protect me. They told me it was my fault. It's never a kid's fault.
Ever.
It is never, ever, ever a kid's fault. And you need to make sure that you are protecting your kids because so many of our children are dying for so many reasons. We talked about last week how not being able to be themselves is killing them, but having to be silenced is killing them too.
Sure is.
Them not feeling believed, not feeling supported, not feeling loved, not feeling protected. You get one job when you decide to be a parent. You got one job.
You like an officer, protect and serve that child.
That's it. That's all. And when you tell them that people can do things to them, and you know, sometimes those women that do that is speaking from a trauma place because it happened to them. But how did that make you feel? Because you're less of a person now that someone violated you and took that innocence from you and stole your existence. They stole from you. Who were you because that happened to you? Why would you ever want to perpetuate that and hand that down to your children? Why would you ever want to do that? And we need to stop protecting these people. When I tell you that I had to unplug for a bit last week because of the multiple celebrations of Cosby being let off after this man admitted to doing these things. He didn't get let off because he was innocent. He got let off because of a technicality, because of how they were able to lock him up. It wasn't because he didn't do it. And to see the celebration from my people that this happened, I was devastated. I was so bothered.
It's the same energy when it comes to R. Kelly and how certain people feel about that. But did you see what was that, Judge Joe Brown?
I did not.
Oh baby, he did an interview with a black journalist, black man, and he was basically saying it was the women's fault and that they were stupid, and these were words that he were using. He said they were stupid, and he was glad Cosby got off, and the man was like, but he's saying that he did these things. So you saying, and he was saying that the man should not be punished for the women's actions. They were groupies. This is what he is, Judge Joe Brown. And the gentleman who, I can't remember his name, but he commentates on a lot of different things via social media, and he always spot on. He's a debater, and he comes with the facts. He's a young black guy on Instagram. And he was speaking on it, and he was like, we need to reevaluate every case you have ever covered when it comes to women and sexual assault, because if this is how you're on television, on live television, saying these things, you're that comfortable saying that these women basically deserved it and they stupid because they was groupies and they used drugs and listened to music and all this other stuff. He was saying that they deserve to be drugged and raped and all this other stuff. So this is what you're saying on national television. You're that comfortable with this that you're going to sit on national television in the interview.
I can decide to strip naked and run down the street and bet nobody ever touch me. There is never.
I can walk casually.
Look, there's never. I said run only because it just seems like something you do. You don't run if you outside.
Just streaking down the street.
Streak down the street. But if I decided to do that, that still does not give anybody the just cause to violate me and touch me. I don't care if the women went in there and said out their mouth that they wanted to have sex with Mr. Bill Cosby. He drugged them. He drugged them.
Came with the drugs and intention to drug them.
With intentions and admitted to it. And people are saying that it's okay. And it's devastating because when we talk about why Black women feel unprotected, when we talk about why Black women feel unloved, when we talk about why Black women have such deep-seated hatred and disdain for Black men, this all filters down into that hurt that they feel. They are hurt. Mm-hmm. They are hurt. As watching all of these stories from R. Kelly, he done gave some of these girls STDs, and they never gonna be able, to get past it.
Had them locked up in like compounds, like
everything. And to hear that we got to separate the music from the man. No, the hell I don't. He won't get any money from me listening
And
to
how
his
did we act like we were surprised like he wasn't married to Aaliyah? She was all of what, 10 and a half? Stop it. Like,
but every time. So hearing us say that stuff as a community, there's women out there, there's black girls, there's black women now that's saying, I might as well never say anything. Because
now this stuff is real public, is over the internet, it's in the media, and they hear people say, "Oh, it's they fault." How you gonna tell little girls, high school students? I hope wasn't none of them elementary school, but maybe elementary school students. How are you telling these girls that it's their fault when this grown, pardon my French, ass man is hanging out at the high schools? Knowing he's popular, knowing he got money, knowing he got clout, so he's probably telling them he was gonna put them on the track or something. How are you telling them it's their fault? That is a child, and that's a grown man who used leverage over them.
One of the things that really bugs me that we need to stop as a community is, well, she fast and she went and she pursued that man. Now, do sometimes girls lie about their age and try to pursue older men? Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely has happened.
Guess what, sis? It doesn't matter because that grown man should know better. He should know better. Of course, there are young ladies that want to feel, older than they are. They want to feel desired. They want all of these things. It's cool, right? So, he want me. But that fool shouldn't have known better. He absolutely.
It's your job to shut it down.
It's your job to shut it down. It's your job to say, no, thank you. I'm not playing on that field. No, thank you. And he didn't.
At all.
I don't care how old or how much these girls pursued him. He is the adult. He should know better. We tell kids all the time that, I'm the adult. I know what's better for you. I know this thing. You can't pick and choose when you gonna know when the right thing is to do.
And he was pursuing them. Like, if y'all see Nikki comment talking about when he got one of her friends' numbers at 13 years old and her part, he was hanging out at the McDonald's. What celebrity you know? Hanging out at Mickey D's and at high schools. He cruising for girls. You cruising. You are actively searching, waiting, spending time looking for them. You're doing that intentionally. I don't care what anyone says. That's not okay. And you grown. And you know what you're doing. You know what you're doing. And everyone who was in his team who allowed it should be arrested as well. Because his whole team, his whole squad, production team, managers, everybody knew that this was happening.
Everybody knew. And they said, and it was okay. And this is why, this is a huge reason why we are at the state that we're in as a community, and why, it's black women against black men. It's for that reason especially, because we're not being protected. Our babies are not being protected. There's no way that these men should have been allowed to do the things that they've done and get away with them. And not only just them, and because they're celebrities, but the family member as well that's hurting and raping and abusing kids in the family. It's not okay. And you are complicit and you are an accomplice if you don't say something, if you don't stop, if you don't tell this fool that he got to go, if you don't tell. And you allow
family members who allow it and encourage it. Because it's a whole nother thing when you start looking at Hollywood and all the backdoor stuff them young kids had to go through to get casted in roles and all of this other stuff with casting agents and producers and all this other stuff. Had to do some things to get their opportunities in Hollywood. And like just now, and they're grown now, they coming out saying that they had to do this stuff as children. But when you really want to be 100, Hollywood ain't never hear what they was on with kids and what these predators and pedophiles was on. Because if you look at Playboys, they had kids. Drew Barrymore, when she was a little girl, was a pinup in Playboy. They're publishing it. How was that not child pornography? Whose mama signed that waiver?
Somebody that wanted the check more than they wanted her to have self-respect, love, and dignity.
And you understand that these kids that were having to do these things for these roles and these positions that they were in were not in those meetings alone.
At all.
Who took them to the meeting?
That's how deep rooted it is, though, sis. That's how deep the rabbit hole goes. And it needs to stop. And until we start protecting our kids,
absolutely,
we're going to continue to have broken souls walking about everywhere. This is a real problem. It makes me sad as someone that does the work every day, having these conversations, having these disclosures, going to a call, talking to a student and hearing their story. And so many kids could be or could have gotten out of the situation if only they had someone that they felt would protect them. And so it's super important that we're that person for our kids, for your children, for your nieces, for your nephews, for any kid that you care about or don't know, that you're protecting them, because it don't have to just be somebody related to you. If you see something, you need to call somebody, you need to call to the attention of. And if you tell your babies that, well, hush, or we're not going to report, or we're just going to let it go. And, even if you keep that person from around your kid, now you're giving that person the space to victimize somebody else's kid. And it just goes on and on. It's just the cycle.
The trauma continues.
And the trauma continues. The brokenness continues. The hatred continues for one another. It has to stop with us. We have to start protecting our kids. And nobody gets a pass. Nobody pass.
But it's also, we talked about the young people's rationale on why they don't speak up. A lot of times they feel like they won't be believed and all these other things we've already stated. But I want to talk about the parents that don't speak up for a second.
Ooh, go ahead.
We've talked about the ones that just don't believe their kids or they flip script on their kids. But then there's a shame that Nikki talked about, that she stated earlier, that not only is on that young person who is violated, but that is on the family name, that is on that parent, right? And they don't want the stigmas or the looks of having a child that has been molested, but your child has been molested regardless. So it should not matter how somebody look at you because of it. That baby is hurt and that person is doing wrong and that person will do wrong again, and you're comfortable with letting that happen.
You're an accomplice. More than comfortable, you are now an accomplice in the crime. Anytime somebody go rob a bank, if they rob the bank and you drive the getaway car, you are an accomplice.
You will be also in jail.
So you will also be charged. So if you know that this person is abusing and harming others and you do nothing and you cover it up and you protect, you are an accomplice in the act. You are just as culpable.
Because you didn't want to be looked at a certain way, but your child lived through that trauma. So we need to fix it. We need to fix it as a people. Like in this moment, everybody needs to fix it. I don't care if you black, brown, purple, pink.
Right. Everybody
needs to fix it.
Facts.
But specifically for my black and brown people, everybody needs to fix it. But right now, for my black and brown people, I need you to understand that the trauma has to end somewhere. As a people, we could be amazing. We are amazing. As a people, we could live a peaceful life. As a people, we can live a triumphant life if only we healed. I'm going to keep going back to that, because if we don't, trauma begets more trauma, and it's a cycle of trauma. It has to end somewhere. It has to end. We have to be the ones to stop it by protecting our babies, by believing our babies, by letting them know their feelings matter. Even if you just say that to your child once a day, your feelings matter.
You matter. Your thoughts matter. Your feelings matter. Your harm matters. If someone's hurting you, it matters. If I hurt you, that matters.
Family.
The family hurts you, that matters. Nobody gets a pass. That's what we need to be walking through the rest of 2021 in and into 2022.
And the rest of
Nobody
our
gets
life.
a pass. Nobody gets a pass. Like, if
Nobody.
you hurting people, if you know people that's hurting people, nobody gets a pass. Don't do it. We have got to start, when they keep saying, what's wrong with our youth? There was a whole lot of stuff circling around about this weekend. And the kids going downtown and
That
acting a
was
fool and
crazy.
cutting up. And what's wrong with our kids? There's a lot wrong with our kids.
A whole lot.
There's
But
a
do
lot
we have
wrong
the
with our
time
kids.
and the capability to actually start to work on some of these problems, because we can talk.
But here's the thing, though. We're part of the problem of what's wrong with our kids.
Exactly.
And until we say that as adults, until we say that as parents, and we
raise them,
we're part of what's wrong with our kids. And when we have told kids that things don't matter, certain things, they don't matter. They don't get a say so. They don't get an opinion. They just, are to be controlled. Any people that feels oppressed is going to eventually have enough and rebel against that system.
and young
So
people feel oppressed.
they feel oppressed. And there's a lot of those young people, I bet, that's hurting because they too have been told by someone they love to hush and be quiet. Don't tell nobody, or I don't believe you. So there's a lot wrong with our kids. And until we start breaking it down little by little, we're going to continue to see our generations deteriorate. It's going to continue to go south. And we have to start holding ourselves accountable where it matters the most. And this is one of the ways that we as parents need to hold ourselves accountable. Listen to your kids. Pay attention to your kids. Something don't feel right, then you need to let them tell you that. You need to go with your gut as well. Nobody gets a pass. Nobody.
And what I just want to highlight one word: pay attention.
Pay attention.
Pay attention. Because you can't see the signs that's right in front of your face if you're not looking at them. Pay attention. In the age now with technology and work and bills and life as an adult, a lot of times we can go without even looking at our kids for real.
Not weeks. Me. I'm like, not me. I'm nosy. I'll be like, I know I get on their nerve. I just randomly pop in the room. Like, what y'all doing? What's going on? I'd be like, you scared me. Why? Why did I scare you? What were you doing? But it's important. They know their mommy's gonna question. I'm gonna question. I need to know what's going on. What you doing on that computer? What you
always being confused because she might randomly pop up.
Listen, randomly, you never know. I might pop out your closet and be like, what you doing? You didn't know I was in there, did you?
How about you in college? She in your bed when you get home from class. Hey, baby, how was it?
We absolutely need to do that because, I got one job when it comes to these kids. And when it comes to protecting my kids, I am a lioness. I don't play. And anybody can get it. Nobody gets a pass when it comes to that I brought here and the ones that I didn't bring here. I do that for kids that I just meet in the professional world or just people that I didn't have to birth you to love and care about children.
That's what it should be though. What we get away from and where a lot of this stuff starts stemming from is we have our individual pot mentalities now. Either it's all about me or it's all about me and mine right there. Like, that's the thing that it used to be because we were all we had. We had to look out for each other. You had Miss Lisa across the street that watched you on your way home. You had
until you got home. If you got locked out the house, you had someplace to go because that happened. A lot of us were latchkey kids. Our parents had to work, so we had to get ourselves to and from the bus stop or wherever. Walk home from school, and we had to get inside and not open that door. But a time or two, you done left a key. Forgot to do something, and you had those people that you trust and that looked out for the kids in the neighborhood. Now we just be hands off. It'd be like, I don't want to get involved. And
we don't even know our neighbors.
But part of it is because, I've had an encounter or two with trying to do that, and the parent gets mad. The parents make you don't tell my kid what to do, and I don't need your
But
help.
that's that mentality. Me and mine. You can't say nothing. Me and mine.
Me and mine. But we need to get out of that because
Absolutely.
we need as many eyes on these people that are hurting kids as possible. The more eyes that is out there watching, the better it is for us to protect these kids. I want people paying attention to what or somebody is around my kids that ain't supposed to. Let me know. Let me know what's going on, because the more eyes on them, the less opportunity there is for people to hurt these children. We need to be paying attention. We need to be noticing when something ain't right. I remember watching something where a girl was kidnapped, and she was all in the store, and if anybody had just paid attention and looked at this child enough, this abuser, this her captor was just carrying her around everywhere, and nobody was paying attention, and people were like, I thought it was weird that it seemed out of the ordinary that, but you didn't say nothing.
But no, they did an experiment where they had a busy street where people walking up and down the street, and they had an experiment where they had a little actor, it was a girl, and another actor, it was a man, and I think it was a boy, but he was grabbing him and pulling him into an alley, blatantly, broad daylight, where people are walking down the street, and the people kept walking. Some people even looked back like, "Dang, that's crazy," and kept walking.
Girl, people will pull out their phone and record it before they actually call for help.
We have to get away from that. That's that Western culture-ish there, because we are a village. We are better together, and they can control us more when we are divided. But when we stand together and say, this is my people, all these people, my people, and we all stand for each other and protect each other, then we will be safer. We will be more healthy, mentally, spiritually, and physically for it. We have to get back to working together and acknowledging and loving each other and supporting each other and helping each other. We have to, or things like this will continue. And that is so
unfortunate. To keep going, and then we're not going to ever be on the same page. We're not going to be able to coexist and love on each other. We have to protect one another, and it starts today.
Yep.
It starts today.
Yep.
So I know it's almost 10 o'clock, but you can start today. You can make the decision today, right now, that moving forward, you're going to be sure to protect your village. And not by your village do I mean just who came from you and who you are related to, but people that look like you.
Mm-hmm.
Because wrong is wrong, and nobody gets a pass. We need to have it, because when we start demanding it within, then it makes it more powerful for us to demand it outward. But if we giving ourselves a pass to do things inside and hurt each other, what does that say about what other people are able to do to us too? So nobody gets a pass. We need to start holding everybody accountable, every single person accountable. We need to sweep our own porches too. And that's it.
And don't forget to get up under that rug.
Don't forget to get under the rug, because it's a pile of dirt under there. It's a pile of dirt.
It's so much BS up under that rug. The rug ain't even on the floor no more.
It's a hill.
It's a hill. Get up under that rug. Get it all out. Because nobody can heal until that happens. Because it's been piled up for generations. Yep. And if you start speaking your peace and healing your traumas and passing that healing on to your kids in 2021, you are doing your ancestors justice. You are helping them heal on the other side, because you are stopping the generational curse. And that is what we need to be doing. Stopping the generational curse.
Today. And this is a generational curse. And we need to call it what it is. We need to call it out when it's happening. And we need to not give anybody a pass. I'm going to keep saying that. Nobody gets a pass. I need a t-shirt that says,
nobody gets a pass.
Nobody gets a pass. Like, nobody gets a pass.
Nobody gets a pass.
Journey. We are getting better, and we're going to continue to work towards being healthy people, because we deserve it. And it starts with making sure that our kids know that they deserve it. So protect your babies. Nobody gets a pass.
And educate your babies.
Educate your baby. I'm going to be educating your baby. I'm hoping to do a whole presentation, just a live from We Gon Talk, with what, for parents, what to look out for, what to, how to get help if you need help. Nikki dropped some really dope things in the comments. I hope you guys do visit these links. I'm going to also reshare them on the pages so that you guys can have them. She talked about an important book. Nikki dropped that book in the comments if you're still with us, so people can come back and get that topic, that title as well, and read that book and talk to your kids. Build this.
What's it called? Breezy Street?
Right. I think she said Leaving Breezy Street.
Leaving Breezy Street.
So I think we'll definitely get it, because we want you guys to have it. If you watch this or rewatch it, it was mentioned. You can always go back and get that title. But I want you guys to really, really pay attention to your babies. Protect your babies. Tell them that you believe them. Believe them, babies. They're not lying. They're not lying. If they saying somebody hurt them, they're not lying. And you need to believe them, and you need to protect them, and you need to stop that person from hurting others. He or she won't stop. They are going to continue to abuse others. And you want to make sure that your kids understand that they matter, that they are important too, and that it's not their fault, and nobody has the right to do that. So we talking about Leaving Breezy Street by Brenda Myers Powell. So check out that title, y'all. Get that book. I want Nikki, drop your final thoughts. Usually we have our guests give a final thought. You had to leave.
I know that baby they ate by now.
Look, Bear was like, I need my dinner right now.
Teach your children to advocate for themselves.
Listen, all the time.
For real, because there's too many children, and I said this earlier, they feel like they don't have a voice.
Yes.
And that is not a small thing to say, because when you feel like you don't have a voice, that means you won't say anything when people are doing you wrong. And that's friendships, that's relationships, again, any of the shit.
All the way around. Work, because people will take advantage of you in the workforce, and they need to know how to deal with that as Black people, as Black children, who will be adults coming up. But one of the things is advocate, even if it's me. I tell my kids, like, even if it's me, my kids have the bubble system. If it's something that you particularly feel a little weird about, you yell bubble, and I cannot get mad. There can't be like any harshness. I need to listen. I can't interrupt them. I just need to let them tell me whatever their truth is. And I done heard some things in this bubble now, but I've always walked away from it feeling so grateful.
They said it.
Grateful that they told me. It'd be like, oh my gosh, like it's
the rapport for me. So
listen, I just had a bubble moment last week where I wasn't necessarily expecting to have that moment, but was I not grateful that my child felt comfortable enough to have it with me and express himself to me authentically and openly and tell me what he was thinking? And he didn't know, he was still afraid, even though I was saying I'm not mad, like just tell me. He was afraid to tell me what it was. But when he did afterwards, the way that hug, it was the hug for me afterwards, where my child climbed into my lap and gave me a hug and said, thank you for listening.
And the fact that he was scared, but he told you anyway.
Listen, I said, don't you ever be afraid to tell me anything.
That's a parenting win right there.
Listen, I done got some stories, some questions, some things, and I'm like, sometimes I'll be prepared. Sometimes I'll be like, wait, what? Why are you asking? Is it that time? Is it now? Like, we doing this now? You know what? Well, let's do it. Let's have at it.
Roll your sleeves up.
Listen, let's look, because ain't nobody else gonna tell you bad information. Right. I'm gonna tell you the truth. I want you to get it. I want you to know it. It may be uncomfortable in the moment because I wasn't necessarily wanting to talk about it right now, but we gonna talk about it then. We gonna sit down and we gonna talk, and you can ask me anything. And my kids ask me anything. Whew, Lord, my kids ask me anything.
But that's amazing, because if that means they want to know, they're interested, or they've been exposed to some stuff and they're not getting the wrong information somewhere else. That's amazing.
Indeed. And I encourage other parents to have that bubble system. You can call it what you want. My kids also have code words. I saw someone mentioned the code word before in the comments, but we have code words for different things. Like if they having a moment and they just need, and they feeling triggered, and I just need everybody and everything to leave me alone and stop, they yell out their word. And I get it. If they need private time, they need privacy away from us. Okay, they have a code word for that. If they need just one-on-one time to talk about nothing in particular, maybe it's not necessarily a bubble moment, but they just need my attention and my attention alone so they can talk and express some things. They have a word for that. And they yell it and I spring into action. What is it? What you okay, that's the moment. And it's like, okay, let's stop. My son, for example, sometimes he just wants to talk about things because he has so much on his mind. He's 10, and I swear he's actually 40, and he's trapped in a 10-year-old's body. I'm pretty sure of this. But sometimes he's just so full and he just need to talk. And I might be busy and I'm going to town doing some stuff and he'll yell out his word and I'd be like, okay, well, let's get some snacks. And we go in my room, close the door, and we sit on the bed, crisscross applesauce, and we talk. I make eye contact. I make eye contact the whole time. There's no phones. There's no distractions. It's none of that. We sit and we talk about it. And I wait until he's done or until she's done because my daughter has done it too. And when they done, I go in process. I keep a straight face. If I feel some sort of way about something, I don't show it. I cry in the room when I'm by myself. I go to the bathroom, I excuse myself, and go have a moment of processing time for me. But never once have I lost my cool in front of them because, that's special. And I'm hoping to continue that. I've been, knock on desk, having it work. And I got a teenager now. And we know that sometimes complicated our relationships with our daughters from, maternal to daughter relationships can get a bit complicated when we get to a certain point. But I'm very grateful that, she still feels able to come talk to me. She was talking to me on the live one day when we had the mother special and she came and I was like, wait, why are you bringing this up now? We already talked about this, but then I had to reset.
We're gonna talk about it, is what she said.
I had to check it and say, okay, so why did you bring that up? And I'm like, okay, but listen, this is why I explain things to my kids. I had someone tell me that
you have to. If not, they're never gonna know why, and they're gonna always want to know. Even if they don't ask, they always want to know.
They want to know. And it's not I'm explaining to them because I feel respected or because I'm afraid of my kid. I need you to understand why I feel the way I feel, why I said what I said. And then that way too, when you understand why I'm doing things, when I am telling you something, that rapport is there. You're more apt to listen to me and respect what I'm saying because it's coming from a place.
And when you're not there, you've already explained it. So if the same situation come up, they're going to move differently because you told them why.
Yep. You need to be able to tell your kids why. And it's nothing wrong with that. That's healthy parenting because they matter.
And outside of protecting our children, another thing we're sent here to do is to guide them and to prepare them to be an amazing human being who can stand on their own and execute things and deal with responsibilities and be kind and all of those amazing things that come with being a great human being. That's our job, to guide them down that right path. What you say? You're the tour guide on this thing, Carla?
That's what I keep all hands and feet inside the vehicle at all times. Please allow this light vehicle to come to a complete stop before you exit the premises. Like, that's what you are. You a guide. That's it. So, Nat, hit us with your closing thoughts. Nikki, if you have closing thoughts and you still with us, drop them in the chat. I would love to read them for everyone. She's just been dropping jewels. I just love you, Nikki.
Thank you so much, Nikki.
If the pandemic put me right where I needed to be at because I'm trying to tell
the
you
truth.
The circle that has began to form from being still. And Nikki is definitely one of those people in the village. I mean, just a dope individual, poet. I mean, she's my poetry crush. Like, I just look up to her write. I mean, when I grow up, I'm gonna write like Nikki.
When I grow up,
and I'm a like Nikki real artist. I'm gonna be a real artist like Nikki. That's my goal. Like, that's me. Nikki says y'all doing the ancestors work for real. I love y'all, Nikki. We love you. Thank you for coming in.
I received that.
Man, you done dropped some things for us to have and to reference once we leave here, so we can continue the conversation because it don't stop here.
It must continue.
And we gonna talk some more.
And we gonna talk about it.
We gonna talk about it. So closing thoughts, sis. What you got for us?
Man, in all honesty and love and respect for anyone who has lived through any type of sexual abuse or trauma or molestation or whatever it may have been, whether it be verbal, touching, or anything else, know that you are not alone. Know that you matter. Know that you are not the sum total of that experience.
Yes.
Know that you are worthy of love, of respect. You are amazing. And that person cannot stop you from being amazing and being all that you were put here to be, because you're here for a reason. You're still here for a reason. And you are strong. And you can make it out of that situation. You can make it through that situation. It may not be easy, but you will make it to the other side. And similar to the young lady, Brianna, I think her name was, that did the Leaving Breezy Street. And the other young lady I was talking about earlier, and so many who have lived through trauma, but they come out strong on the other end. You can too. And if you've never said it out loud, if you feel that will help heal you, say it out loud. Say it to me, say it to Sante, say it to a friend, say it to your partner, say it to God, say it to your journal. Whatever you need to do to get it out and start that process of healing. Because if we don't heal ourselves, we can't help to heal this world around us. And if you are here, I truly feel like it is all of our jobs to heal ourselves and start to heal the people around us. And again, you can't save nobody but you. You can wholeheartedly determine the life you live. And what that person took from you was not your life. You still have that. So determine how you want to live it. For the parents and everyone else who is watching this, who may have gone through a similar situation, who has children who are going through or have gone through this situation, know that it's not your fault either, because some parents blame themselves.
Because that was going to be part of my closing thought, because so many parents internalize that and blame themselves. And it's, you know, these perpetrators are cunning. They are manipulative. They are smart. And they have duped you too. It wasn't just, you know, the only time
you are also violated
is when you turn a blind eye. So when
then
we say it's not your fault, we're talking about the initial violation, the initial abuse is never your fault. The person that is to blame is the person that does it. It's the perpetrator. They are the ones that has done this. It's not their fault. But then you have a responsibility to your child. You have a responsibility to children you don't know, to future victims, to not sit in that, to not be complicit with that, to not be an accomplice to that. You need to make sure that you stop that person, that person doesn't have the grounds to hurt another child. But you are so right. It is not your fault unless you turn a blind eye. Because
then
now
you made a choice.
You made a choice. And you made the choice that affected the next person. And the next person, and the next
your child,
and your child. Facts.
So as a parent, if like, I hope and pray that this is not the truth for your children. If it hasn't happened, I hope and pray that is not the case. But the best thing you can do is prepare your child to stand up for themselves. To prepare your child. I mean, some people do self-defense. I'm putting my baby in martial arts. Okay. All right.
You know, the world trying to open back up. If it gets safe again, he going right back to karate and her. Because I told her, I said, everybody's going.
You know, if it's self-defense, but preparing them mentally and physically to understand that my body is mine and that person's body is theirs. And I don't have dimension over theirs, but I do have dimension over mine. And nobody can touch anywhere I don't want them to touch. And I'm not going to touch you anywhere that you don't want to be touched. And understanding the concepts of permission. We have to teach these things to our boys and our girls so that the cycle doesn't continue. And as a parent, we have full responsibility of teaching that to our children. And if it is offered at school, don't opt out of it, because they need to get this information from somewhere. And they need
I'm
it
teaching your babies. I'm teaching your babies. Representation matters.
Absolutely.
I love it when I'm teaching Black babies and I'm able to, tell Black and brown children, like, hey, I want you to be safe. I'm talking to your babies, but absolutely, please don't opt your kids out. This law is super important. It's active and going in 37 states. There are another 12 states, 11 states that are pending, and they were expected to have Erins Law before the pandemic hit. Hopefully, they are doing Erins Law now.
Everywhere.
But it needs to be everywhere. And continued on conversations after I leave, one time a year. I get to be with your kids one time a year, maybe 30 minutes, maybe an hour. It depends on what the school has chosen. And I'm packing a lot of information in that time because I want them
to hopefully start the conversation before the kids even get to you. Again, we got to start our babies young.
Because they send out notification. Your school has to notify you when Erins Law programming is coming up. So they let you know that the programming is going to be in the schools. And that's an opportunity for you to, start to prepare your kid or your children for coming and receiving that information the next day, and continue check in with your babies. Mm-hmm. And what's really, really, really important to me is that you tell them, I believe you. Yeah. Kids do not lie about these things, y'all. They don't lie about these things. Tell them you believe them. I believe you. I'm going to protect you. Tell them that you believe them. Tell them that you're there to help them. Don't ask too many questions. That's a really important thing. Ask enough so you know who did it, where it's happening, and when it happened, so that you can make sure that you're getting the proper channel or notifying the proper people for help and assistance, which includes filing a report. Take your babies, if you find that they you suspect that they're being abused or they disclose that they're being abused, take your babies to the ER. I know we're in a pandemic and that's scary. Take them and get them checked out and make sure that they're okay and they're healthy and they don't have any STDs or STIs. You need to take your baby to get checked out. Take them to your primary care physician if you don't feel comfortable going to the ER. Definitely do that and make sure that they're okay. There are resources out there. Nikki dropped a link for people that may need more information. You can always reach out to myself or Natalie if you need more information on resources for counseling, for advocacy services. Yeah. It's a person that you know and that has access to your child and you need an order of protection, a no contact order from that person. There are people that can help you with that. There are resources. Once upon a time, there wasn't. And there's so much out here to protect you and protect your kids. So utilize that. Mobilize that. We are here. We want to help you. And absolutely know, if you are a survivor, it is not your fault. Yeah. You are strong. You are incredible. I always say that sexual violence is the only way of killing someone without actually taking their life, because you're never the same person. You heal, you mend, but you're never the same. Just like a glass, you can glue the pieces back together, but it's never the same. And so we want you to have support on that healing journey. You deserve it. It is not your fault. You are not to blame, contrary to what the society tells you.
Come on.
And there are people out here that wants to stand with you. We stand with you. We're here in this fight with you. We will support you. You are not alone, as Natalie already said. You are not alone. Protect these babies. Keep these babies safe. They are depending on you. They are depending on you, and they need you. They need all of us.
We a village. Don't lose that note.
Look,
all these babies are our babies, and we need to make sure they all protected and safe.
All facts. I'm gonna read Nikki's comment before we get off this live. Nikki's comment, her final thoughts were, all I have to say is that dignity and freedom and joy are our birthrights. We have the right to secure and fight for those birthrights. Absolutely.
Yes.
Thank you so much And she just dropped a really important link here for Case, the organization that she is with. Nikki is dope. Like, y'all don't know how dope this woman is.
Clearly, she out here doing the work.
She's out here doing the work in ways that, if you don't know, you better find out. You better ask somebody.
Okay.
She out there. She knows. She's known.
Thank you, sis, for doing the work.
Yes,
The work we don't even know you doing. We appreciate you.
Also, always check out stuff for Surviving the Mic, where it's a brave space for survivors. We kind of get a lot of things out there on Surviving the Mic. Sometimes we just need to release. It's a brave space to come and be in community with and support by those that are in alliance with survivors. So definitely check that out as well. And she said, "Oh, I go on." Yes, Nikki, go off because you deserve to. Yes. And come back next week, y'all. It is our 1 year anniversary. Lord, I made it.
Right.
I made it. I'm so proud. I'm so excited, sis, because it's been hard to know that this little thing, I'm trying to tell you, this little thought that I had 4 years ago now has now been going on for a year. I'm very proud to say I did it. I was so scared. I was so nervous to go out there and get it going. So it's a wonderful milestone to make a year, and there'll be more to come. So keep rocking with us. Thank y'all that has been rocking with us for this whole year. Like, I can't believe it's a year, but I feel very proud. And I feel so grateful to just have such amazing people that have graced this screen with me, especially my co-host who's here with me every week. It seems like I've known her all her life because I'm kind of older, kind of. So
like a good 2 seconds. You only 25, so.
Yes, I'm only 25. So join us next week, where we're going to be back with some of our favorite guests that come on. They might as well be host themselves because they come on a lot. And we just going to revisit some of the big topics that we discussed over this year. We're going to talk about some of those major topics, just get some perspective on where everybody is. If we going to talk actually helps, some of those conversations. So I look forward to seeing you all next week. Thank y'all for joining us. Look at these links now. Check these links out. Y'all. Nikki she done hooked us up. All right, y'all. Good night, y'all.
See ya.